Hey, 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 happy Wednesday. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, shockingly enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard, everybody. Today is Wednesday, June 26th, 2024. This is live show 1073. If you're not overly familiar with the show, let me point out, super casual around here. We just hang out talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news, and then I will normally pontificate about a topic related to our hobby, which is what I'm going to do tonight, because it's the end of the world as we know it. And I feel fine. That's right. We're going to talk about some doomsday scenarios that you can use to power your apocalyptic / post-apocalyptic role-playing games. We will get into that after the news. But of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Lastly, this is a live show. That means there is chat available. It's not on screen. It's one of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. And you must be a subscriber to the channel for at least an hour before you can take part in chat. Yet another way I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But if you want to say howdy, maybe you get a question, a comment, by all means, chime in. I will do my best to respond. First out the gate tonight is the Motor City Madman. Yes, the Madman is with us tonight. He is also one of our chat moderators. Keith Thulu is with us, as is Kevin R. Smith, Tessie Trekkie, Semper Buffo, Jose Fernandez, Game Cat, Pete Drakulich, Lord Cost 2000, and Lenny Blade are all here in chat. Plus, but wait, there's more. I will take a guess. The lovely and talented Miss Sarah D is lurking in the shadows. Yes, she is also another of our chat moderators. So it looks like our chat is off and rocking early. Very nice. Very nice. So at least today we'll have a more cheerful topic than last night. Right? We're going to talk end of the world tonight. Not talking about the future of Dungeons and Dragons. Tony Arcades is also swinging on in. Good to see ya. All right. Let's jump on into the news because I've got a nice mix tonight, as I normally do. Returning to print in August for Capstone Games is Pagan Fate of Roanoke. Here's the skinny. Pagan Fate of Roanoke is an expandable deduction card game set in colonial America of 1587. The essence of this asymmetrical game is a witch's struggle against a witch hunter. As the witch strives to complete a ritual of renaturation, the hunter tries to discover her true identity among 9 villagers. Each turn, the 2 players use their action pawns on active villagers to draw cards, play cards, and gain influence. Each player has their own variable card deck of 50 cards. With these cards, the witch can brew powerful potions, improve their familiar, and cast enchantments and charms. while the witch hunter enlists allies, claims strategic locations, and ruthlessly investigates the villagers. As the witch, your objective is to collect enough secrets to perform a ritual so potent that the entire region will fall under your spell and Mother Nature will reclaim the island. As the hunter, you gather all the allies and support you can muster to bring the witch to justice before her fatal ritual comes to fruition. Pagan Fate of Roanoke has been designed as an expandable game with new cards and other mechanics added through content packs. Each of these content packs allow you to tailor a deck to suit a particular play style or to enable specific combinations. Content packs, both large and small, are planned to be available later this year. Pagan Fate of Roanoke is for 2 players, ages 12 and up, plays in around 30 to 60 minutes, and will carry an MSRP of $44.95 when it returns to stores this August. We'll mention that this is the first time that Capstone Games has published Pagan Fate of Roanoke. It was originally a smaller publisher who has now teamed with Capstone Games in order to get a lot more eyes on this game, I do believe. Gotta say, like the art style is very, very reminiscent of Darkest Dungeon. I would not be shocked if it's the same artist because it looks very similar. Kind of cool. And I happen to be a fan of 2-player asymmetrical games. So very nice. Very nice. Flaming Heron and John Snyder are popping on in the chat. Welcome to you both. Of course, Flaming Heron is the third of our 3 chat moderators. So behave. Let's talk about some role-playing game news because there is a new deluxe box set which has arrived for the Little Game Master, and I've got the skinny from Randall Hampton. The Little Game Master is a book about 5 friends who, when confronted with boredom, are drawn into the world of tabletop role-playing games. They quickly realize the opportunities for fun and adventure that are available in their own minds. Far in the northern mountains of Indoran, a single tower sits atop a snow-covered peak. You've been called forth to explore the tower, solve its mysteries, and prove yourself to be a champion of Indoran. The Frozen Tower is an adventure module to run with your kids as an introduction to tabletop role-playing games. This adventure module uses, you guessed it, the Little Game Master's rule set. So what this is the Little Game Master's collector's box, which is going to include the Little Game Master's rule set, the rule book, the Frozen Tower adventure book, physical character cards, as well as a GM screen made for Little Game Master. Now, this collector's box does carry an MSRP of $75, and I should point out, you will be getting an opportunity to take a peek at this very soon because I've got it right here. Yes, Randall Hampton was kind enough to send me this. This successfully kickstarted not too long ago. So I am going to share a first look video for these. So we will get a much closer look. Very nice. Very nice. So it is a collector's box. And I think it might be the only way that you can get the Game Master screen. Maybe. I don't know. So stay tuned. Moving right along, the long-awaited Urban Shadows 2nd edition is arriving in October from Magpie Games. Here's what I know. Urban Shadows is a political urban fantasy tabletop role-playing game, say that 5 times fast, in which mortals and supernaturals alike vie for power in a modern-day city. Vampires, fairies, hunters, wizards, and more clash in the shadows, or make backroom deals for their piece of the streets and skyscrapers. No one is ever safe, and everything is always at stake. In Urban Shadows, you play unique and powerful archetypes, protagonists who are attuned to the supernatural world. While the mortal world remains ignorant of the struggles of the city's supernatural denizens, you're caught in the middle of the physical conflicts and political drama of the city's past, present, and future. You might be a specter bound to an artifact, unable to move on until you've resolved your trauma. Or you might be a clever vampire who controls the best blood supply in the city, caught up in a war between your kind and those who hunt you. Or you might be a veteran of your city's ancient conflicts, someone who got out of the game but keeps getting drawn back in by friends and families. No matter who you are, you contain within you the power to shape the city's destiny. What future will you choose, and what will your victories cost you? The 250-plus page hardcover is slated for an October release. It is going to carry an MSRP of $49.99. Sweet. This was a very successful Kickstarter. In fact, I shared news about this Kickstarter when it was running, and now we do have some official word that the hardcover book is going to hit this October. I think it's been delayed a bit. So good to hear that we do have, hopefully, a set in stone release date for October. Very nice. Very nice. Horrible Guild has released the One More Quest Collector's Edition. Yes, another collector's box. And I've got the dope. One More Quest is a dexterity-based comedy role-playing game of dungeon-crawling adventures set in the world of the Dungeon Fighter board game. Welcome to Middleware, a world populated by lazy overlords and weird creatures such as hipster gnomes, reversed sirens, and moisty Batrachian princes looking for love. I don't know. I can't picture a moisty Batrachian prince looking for love. In One More Quest, you assume the role of dungeon fighters, a motley band of screw-ups and desperate vagrants forced into the lifestyle by misfortune or bizarre ambition. If you already play role-playing games but don't know what to expect from a dexterity-based one, it's actually pretty simple. The core concept will be familiar to veterans of the Dungeon Fighter board game. When you take decisive action, you throw a die so it lands as close to the center of a target as possible. You can play as a rogue, but can you play like a rogue? To increase the spectacle and challenge, every action applies a special throw restriction. When a dungeon fighter hides from a guard, the player throws from under the table. When a dungeon fighter performs a distracting dance, the player spins around before they throw. Each situation is unique and plays by its own rules. Games are run by a Supreme Dungeon Mastermind, the SDM, who narrates play and speaks for non-player characters. SDMs are supported by chapters of monster profiles and farcical story hooks and a streamlined system using familiar mechanics, character classes, combat rounds, health points, but jettisoning complicated minutiae, spell slots, damage types, multi-stage dice rolling. The rule set is engineered for both casual and experienced role-playing game players, perfect for laughing with friends with these unexpected twists of classic fantasy scenarios. This collector's edition will include the One More Quest rulebook, the Adventure Mixtape Scenario Book, a target board, one Supreme Dungeon Mastermind screen, 6 Icon custom dice, 6 deluxe icon dice. So there's a difference between those. And an embroidered cloth bag. This collector set carries an MSRP of 105 euros. You can currently grab just the core book in PDF if you want to check it out over at Drive-Thru RPG for $25. Yes. I would think this would be pretty funny. As long as the various different things you have to do before you toss your die wouldn't get crazily out of hand, right? Oh, well, you've run a mile being chased by a dragon. So now you have to go run around the block before you can toss your die. Be like, no. Kevin R. Smith is talking about the Urban Shadows 2E. Said long awaited is an understatement. Yeah, I know. They kickstarted in 2019 and then put it on the back burner for the Avatar game. I thought it was like 2020, but Kevin might be right. Yes, it is. It has been a while. Of course, we are talking about Urban Shadows. We are not talking about One More Quest. Although this did also kickstart, if I remember correctly. All right, final news piece. Boy, we just rocked on through the news really quick, didn't we? There is a fresh tale which has arrived for the Delta Green role-playing game. And here's the latest about The Good Life from Arc Dream Publishing. Black hunger in a brimstone heart. The wealthy Atlanta suburb of Druid Hills hides secrets. For decades, its children have vanished from public view, withdrawn from school, never reported missing, but never seen again. Retired Detective Joe Dowant and the nonprofit Center for the Missing Child have witnessed countless crimes visited upon the vulnerable, or even the wealthiest and most privileged, not safe. But the gates of Druid Hills are shut. They want nothing to do with outside investigators. They have property values and family values to protect. They have police and politicians on their side. They have houses filled with finery, basement chambers no one suspects, and appetites they need not explain. When Dwan asks Delta Green for help, your agents may learn just how deep the horrors of Southern prosperity can go. The Good Life is a complete scenario for Delta Green, the role-playing game of Lovecraftian horror and conspiracy. It complements the source book Delta Green, The Labyrinth, building upon one of the factions presented in that tome. The Good Life is playable with the full rules in the Agent's Handbook or the Quick Start rules in Delta Green Need to Know. Of course, all available from Arc Dream Publishing. This 56-page tale is available as a soft cover with PDF through DriveThruRPG for $29.99, or you can grab just the PDF alone for $9.99. I will mention that this is written by the same author as God's Teeth, and it also seems to take on the subject of abused children. So I am warning you now. So I'm just letting you know, because if you follow the Gaming Gang, you know that God's Teeth is well put together, well presented. It achieves what it is looking to do. It is not the sort of stuff that I would feel very comfortable running at my game table. That's why there has not been a review. So there is that. Agile Monk and Gleeman RX are with us tonight in chat. Actually, we got more people in chat than I was expecting. I figured, hey, we're not talking D&D tonight. So we're like, yeah, nobody's coming in. All righty, that is it for the news tonight. Of course, I was just talking about DriveThruRPG. Don't forget, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to visit DriveThruRPG, Storyteller's Vault, Dungeon Masters Guild, Wargame Vault, what have you, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banners. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a small portion of that sale. 5% of this sale comes to me as a commission, as an affiliate commission. And all those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around. I should also mention there are a couple of Roll20 bundles that are out on DriveThruRPG The first one has got loads of like popular RPGs. The second one is a little more indie, but the first has like Fallout. I noticed Joseph Brogan is popping on in to chat. They're mentioning they're running Fallout. Their Roll20 Fallout is part of this bundle. And like I said, the bundles are like $19.95. So I just want to mention that. You might want to go take a peek over at Drive-Thru RPG if you use Roll20 and you're interested in maybe checking out some different role-playing game systems. Yes. Of course, if you like this video, if you dig the channel, if you find thegaminggang.com to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, you can always stop on by paypal.me/thegaminggang to make a small donation. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. Wunderbar. And there are quite a few of you out there who pop on by paypal.me/thegaminggang and make not small donations. In fact, we just had Kevin King pop on by and make a very generous donation. Thank you very, very kindly. All righty then. So we're going to get into tonight's topic in just a few moments, but there was something I wanted to address from last night. I'm going to do this real quickly. It's not something I want to harp on or, get into a rant about or anything like that. But, Tessie Trekkie says they've got the PDF for The Good Life, and it's about God's teeth level. Yeah, that's kind of tricky. So, and to Joseph, congrats. Enjoy running Fallout. I think it's a pretty well done role-playing game. And Devious Entertainment, they really do a good job with their IPs. Especially like the outside IPs, they've done really, really yeoman's work on that. And I know my nephew is a huge Fallout fan, and he took a peek at the core rule book, and he was impressed. He, knows way more about Fallout than I ever would. Anyway, so what I was going to say is last night we were on a topic that, I guess people are relatively divided on, I guess. It had somebody come in and they were commenting about Wizards of the Coast being woke. And I said, do not use that word. That, for one, it's a word that's been misappropriated. It's a word that the vast majority of people who use that word do not understand what that word actually meant. And the reality is, they probably shouldn't be using it in the first place. Just like me, it's not a word that I should use. Look it up. So they were kind of bitching and moaning like I was, censoring them. In fact, I had a comment on last night's video, which I just fucking deleted. I didn't give a shit. Same thing, who do you think you are censoring people in their, their comments? Who do I think I am? I'm the guy who runs the fucking channel. This is my channel. Buck stops here. Buck starts and stops here. You have no rights here. Sorry. I appreciate everybody who hangs out in chat. The vast majority of you are just fantastic people, and I really enjoy doing these shows live so I can interact with you. But if one of you sat there and started accusing someone of being a fascist or a Nazi, I would do the same exact thing. I would say, hey, knock it off. Don't use those words. Because for one, they're so fucking lazy. They're just lazy. Oh, it's woke. Okay, what do you mean? What bothers you about that? If you want to sit there and you want to comment about, X, Y, and Z kind of gets under my skin about whatever. There you go. You're entitled to have that opinion. And to be honest, I don't think I'll shoot you down for sharing that opinion. But when you just throw off these stupid ass fucking terms, I have no time for it. You know, I just don't have time for it. And the reality is, when people sit there and use words like that, like wokeness or wokey, oh, there is fascism, oh, you're a Nazi. Those words are coming from a place of hate, and I do not have a single moment of time to waste on that nonsense. I do not. So if anyone who was hanging out last night, you know, for one, we didn't kick that person out. They left. They made sure to announce that they were leaving. Right? It was like, I even said, don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out. But once again, we did not like boot them. Miss Sarah D did not flash the glittery banhammer and boot them out. They left. But once again, I don't know where people think that, you know, you do not have like what's the word I want to use? Inalienable rights here on this channel. You don't. It's just some things I'm not going to put up with. So yes, Tessie Trekkie, thank you, says the First Amendment protects people from the government, not the social consequences of your blatherings. Yeah, I mean, that's the reality. It really is. W. Forge is mentioning that second bundle seems to be filled with fiction for RPG settings. Maybe that's what it was when I took a peek, because there was a lot of stuff that I just did not recognize. W. Forge says, good, bad, I'm one with the channel. Thank you. Thank you very much. Lord Koss says, thumbs up. Well, thanks. But like I said, it's both sides of the spectrum, right? I am a liberal. People don't like that? Well, see ya. I don't know what to tell you. If you watch these streams and things like that, you've figured it out by now. But I also happen to be open-minded, and I understand critical thinking. And I also realize just because someone's politics don't line up with mine does not necessarily mean that I got to sit there and badmouth them and despise them. Now, there are a lot of despicable people out there. I'm not saying there aren't. But I come from a far different time with, I guess, a lot more compromise than a lot of people see these days. So there you go. There you have it. I just wanted to mention that, you know, like I said, I love having people pop in for live chats. I like interacting with everybody. Like I said, the vast majority of people are always great. But I will not tolerate fools of any stripe. I just won't. I just don't have time for it. As Gandhi once said, to paraphrase, don't come walking through my mind with your dirty feet. So there you go. All right, there is some discussion of Evil Dead 2. Nice. Joseph Bragan says, I'm digging the Fallout book so far. I'll be running it bi-weekly. And I'm hoping to run Dragonbane on the off weeks for another group. Nice. Very cool. Two very fun and quite different role-playing games. All right. So tonight, the world comes to an end as I'm going to discuss various different Doomsday scenarios you can use to power your apocalyptic / post-apocalyptic tabletop role-playing games. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
$65 for a cup of Wilkins coffee?
$65?
You want me to go in there looking like a bum?
Was a man so gentle and kindly that the sight of cruelty and violence cut him like a whip. Transformed in one fantastic night into the graveyard ghoul whose claws were clenched with the wild, uncontrollable urge to kill.
Now, Hannah, who was it you saw?
It was too dark to see properly. He was more like a beast than a human being.
A man with the appetites of a monster. All human passions twisted by the same strange obsession that turned his face into a hideous mask of cruelty.
It was the same man, the very same man. I tell you that if you brought me face to face with him now. It was the Haymarket Strangler.
Body and soul, torn by the battle between good and evil, running amok in a reign of terror that paralyzed a city with fright.
And now, on with the show.
I've got the idea for a movie. So it's called The Haunted Strangler. And it has absolutely nothing to do with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Absolutely nothing. It's like, come on. How much of a ripoff of... I can't get over it. And then it's like, it looks like Boris Karloff's monster character is just someone who's had a stroke. Very weird. Very weird. So W. Fortune asks, has anyone watched Delicious in Dungeons? I was tempted to give that a peek. I don't know. So Tessie Trekkie says it's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but Mr. Hyde is the good guy. Yes. So tonight we're going to bring the world to an end and discuss a variety of doomsday scenarios to power your apocalyptic or post-apocalyptic role-playing games. So I was thinking of a variety of different doomsday scenarios that would be fit for a role-playing game, because there are some that are essentially, well, the human race has been wiped out. Unless you're looking at uplifted animals, something along those lines, maybe aliens that come to the planet after humanity's disappeared, I don't really see too many angles for role-playing games where everybody has been wiped out or all life has been wiped out on the planet. So we're going to discuss a variety of scenarios, situations of varying degrees of reality, I guess we will say. And I would say one of the most realistic apocalyptic kind of scenarios would be economic collapse. In a situation where financial collapse, or say, as an example, that fossil fuels run out. Something like that. So something else we'll keep in mind is what are some of the role-playing game systems that we would maybe use to bring some of these scenarios to life at your game table. And yes, I know every single one of these, someone could say, GURPS. We do understand that. Tessie Trekkie asked, do the rules have to be powered by the apocalypse? No. No, but if you wanted to bust out Apocalypse World, you certainly can. You most certainly can. So W. Forge says Fantasy Flight Games had a series of role-playing game books based on apocalyptic events called The End of the World. Yes, and to be very honest, they were pretty crappy. I reviewed them. They were not very good. The role-playing systems, the game systems were not laid out all that well. And the funny thing is, now I will point out, I did not review all of them. I reviewed the first two, I think, that came out. And there was some stuff that was just cut and paste between books, which I get it. I understand, but still, if they were going to do something like that, why not have a bigger book? Because if I remember right, they were only like maybe 150 pages long. So if they were going to do that, why not just have a 350-page book, have a section, here are your rules, and then get into the various different scenarios for the apocalypse. So yes, one was alien invasion. There was another, it was zombies. Then we had the machines take over. I'm trying to remember what the fourth one was. Off the top of my head. Russell Higgins is with us in chat, as is the Moss Druid. Welcome aboard. They said they're reading EcoPunk's 2044 right now. I am not familiar with that. Not familiar with those. Tessie Trekkie says those End of the World books, they've got them in a box in their garage that they haven't opened in almost a decade. So some of you are jumping in with some scenarios, which we are going to get to in a few moments. Like I said, we're gonna talk about a happy subject tonight. We're not talking about is Dungeons and Dragons doomed. We're going to talk about something uplifting, the end of the world at your game table. So I would think if you were looking at something where, and here's the other thing too, which would you prefer to do, right? Would you prefer to run the apocalypse itself? Because the reality is, in my opinion, I find probably the most interesting aspect of, say, like a zombie apocalypse would be from patient zero on, which, funny enough, we thought Fear the Walking Dead was going to be like that. And then it wasn't. In fact, it took place in LA, and it must have been the most depopulated Los Angeles ever. Not a bad show. I mean, actually, when they revamped it with a practically new cast, it was pretty good for a season. But I personally think that the collapse of civilization in a zombie apocalypse, or any sort of like The Last of Us, right? That's supposed to have taken place really quickly. And it's not truly zombie, creatures and that. I really think that could be really fascinating as a role-playing game with the right scenario. So let's see. John Snyder is popping on in. I don't think I said hello to John. Says, End of the World series, machines, zombies, Alien Invasions, Old Gods. Yeah, okay. If I remember correctly, I think it was the Alien Invasion and Old Gods that I did not review. So we've got that. So we got an economic collapse. I would think any modern system you could utilize for that. Just about anything that's set with even like Outgunned, right? That's a hot, relatively new, modern action role-playing game. Because, of course, obviously enough, any of these scenarios, you're going to have your player characters, you're going to have your stronghold. So you're going to have that aspect of it that they have to worry about, their safe zone, safe house, what have you. Moss Druid says, I don't get the zombie thing unless the zombies are portrayed as something less cliche. It has been overdone. There's no doubt about that. And I'll be the first to admit that I did not watch the last season and a half of The Walking Dead, have not seen any of the spinoffs except for Fear the Walking Dead. So, and the funny thing is, at one point in time, The Walking Dead was appointment TV. There had not been a lot of, in my circle, I almost said my opinion, but I don't mean that. But for me personally, in my lifetime, there have been very few television shows which I felt were appointment TV for myself. Going way back to when I was a little kid, Hill Street Blues, I watched that religiously. Also, I would say Deadwood. Deadwood, I had a whole process on Sunday nights. I'd go to the grocery store, pick up something. I'd make dinner, and I'd make sure dinner was ready just a few moments before Deadwood was going to start. And I would have a seat, have my dinner, boom, on comes Deadwood. So that is a show. Mad Men, another show that I always felt was appointment TV. Absolutely fantastic show. And like I said, The Walking Dead for probably the first 4 seasons, I would say. So W4 says Train to Busan is a good recent zombie movie. I have not seen that. Semper Buffo says they got tired of The Walking Dead. Funny enough, the comic book stayed pretty good throughout. I did read all of the comic. So, in fact, I had started reading the comic long before it had gotten any legs as possibly becoming a television show. All right, so let's move on to our next scenario, and that would be climate disaster. This is another premise that we see in a lot of movies, a lot of television shows, and it appears to me that your main sources of conflict in a climate disaster sort of apocalypse or post-apocalypse is going to be lack of resources, maybe even lack of living space with the rising ocean levels. But I would think you're probably looking at a far better suited post-apocalyptic setting based on climate disaster, which we do have quite a few different role-playing games out there that are set in a future. In fact, Salvage Union is one of them, fairly recent, like that. It's a pretty cool mecha game, which isn't only focused on the mechs. Cracks the Bold is with us. There you go. The plants will kill us. Yeah, Day of the Triffids. Yes. Pete Stracklich says this is where Planet of the Apes comes in. Yeah, we have uplifted animals, right? See, as we progress through these various different scenarios, we are going to get far more fanciful. So we are going to get far closer to Gamma World than the nightly news, right? Tessie Trekkie points out, Dreams and Machines is post-apocalyptic. Yes, yes, it is. It is the machines situation. I didn't really care for Dreams and Machines. I mean, it's fine. It's really aimed at people who don't have a lot of experience with role-playing games. So Dreams and Machines, in my opinion, is something that's really geared towards first-timers, which is fine. But I mean, it really is geared towards people who have not played role-playing games in the past and who have not run role-playing games in the past. It's also far too much like, isn't it Horizon Zero Dawn? I always screw up the name because I haven't played it. It's got, but I know the premise of it. It's got a lot of that. In fact, I've mentioned before that I think Dreams and Machines was supposed to be a role-playing game for Horizon, but something fell through as far as licensing or something like that. So, I mean, it's not, like I said, Dreams and Machines is not bad. It's got, I mean, it's a decent starter set. It is very, very linear as far as adventures go. So I will point that out. I did share a first look at the books, if you want to get a closer peek. I did not do a review because the review would have been far less positive than Modifius Entertainment would have liked to have seen. So, all right. So we have climate disaster. We also have EMP, an electromagnetic pulse, or some other disaster that essentially destroys all electronics. So even, don't they say if we had a large enough solar flare that it would send off like an EMP or effects along the lines of an EMP? I remember there was a book, and I want to say the book was actually written in the 50s or 60s. I can't remember the title of it. It's actually a pretty famous book, and it's about essentially a small town in the Northeast, and there is a short exchange of nuclear warheads, which essentially would knock out all electronics and things like that, and how people have to survive and how the U.S. rebuilds. Kind of interesting, kind of an interesting book. So in the case of a disaster, a doomsday situation where we've got an electromagnetic, geez, English, Jeff, an electromagnetic pulse. I think that would be pretty interesting. And I think that would be a pretty interesting scenario as an apocalypse, not 100 years afterwards, because a lot of these situations, 100, 200, 500 years down the line, the situations will be very similar. It's just, how did we get to that point? But yeah, I think I think like something like that, obviously a role-playing game like Twilight 2000, 4th edition from Free League Publishing, that would work. You'd have to tweak it a bit because, of course, if you're looking at having your player characters mainly be civilians, that is a possibility there. There's some discussion of Jericho. I never had an opportunity. I shouldn't say I didn't have an opportunity to watch it. I never watched that show. I had heard some pretty good things about it. Escape from LA. Oh yeah, that is a brutal movie. It is so goofy and campy. It almost ruins Escape from New York. Almost. Christopher Lundgren's hanging with us in chat asking if I ever saw Damnation Alley. Yes. And I read the book. I actually read the book before I saw the movie. So I read the book about the time the movie came out, and then I actually didn't see the movie for, 5 years or so. I saw it on cable TV one night. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. So another doomsday scenario, which we lived through part of. Thankfully, we didn't get to the doomsday aspect of it. A global pandemic. Global pandemic would be a situation where the game setting would be all about fear. I mean, that really is the big selling point of something like that, right? Same like a zombie apocalypse. All right. Fear of contamination, fear of getting something and dying or changing into something else. I got to be honest, I think a lot of people would probably shy away from the apocalypse side of that scenario because it just is way too close to home. It's way too recent. That would be more, 200 years after a global pandemic. And the funny thing is, I know there are a lot of people out there who don't think that there's really any way that a disease would wipe out all of humanity. Problem is, if you look at the plague, the Great Pestilence is what they called it. They didn't call it the Black Death. They figured that about half of Europe died from the Black Death. So, it is within the realm of possibility that a super bug could come out of anywhere. It could be Mother Nature. It could be people with the wrong ideas, or maybe people with the right ideas, but they screw up. But yeah, I could see having maybe doing a setting that's later in the pandemic. Like we were talking about comic books that would make for fantastic role-playing games. And one of them was Sweet Tooth. And there is a parallel there, except, of course, with that global pandemic, there are also the mutations taking place with the hybrids. The babies being born are hybrid, human and animal. But could use a lot of stuff from that setting, that comic book and that television series as inspiration. Just drop the hybrids out of the equation. The Mustard says, 12 Monkeys, great post-pandemic movie. Yes. Nice twist ending at with that too. W. Forge says, Contagion gave them a lot of COVID-19 vibes, and it came out before it. Funny enough, I like Contagion, but to me, it was far, I don't think it was dark enough. To be honest, I think in a situation where we were facing some sort of super bug, I think civilization would go to shit pretty quick. COVID-19, that was different. It was, granted, it killed a lot of people, killed millions of people, and that was horrible. But if we were looking at a bug that was wiping out the billions, oh yeah, it would get bad pretty damn quick. So, but I did like Contagion. I thought Contagion was a pretty damn good movie, and I was really surprised. Little spoiler here, but then again, that movie's 20 years old. I was really surprised that Kate Winslet dies in that. I was like, whoa, really? Holy shit. The movie Outbreak. Yeah, that was a pretty good movie too. There was some discussion of Logan's Run. If memory serves, Logan's Run, the situation there is lack of resources. I believe that's why they have the, in the books, it's when you turn 21 that you go to Sanctuary. In the movie, it was 30, if I remember correctly. So Chris Lundgren points out their father died of COVID. Man, I'm sorry to hear that. And, we're not going to get into, some of the nutbags out there, but some of these anti-vaxxers, seriously, really? Come on. Anyway, the Badger is with us. Badger's popping in, says they're super late, but they'll chime in. Planning on using Twilight 2000 rules to run a Morrow Project type mini campaign. Yeah, Morrow Project. There's a blast from the past. I think last I heard it was like a 4th edition of Morrow Project. And that's actually kind of a cool setting. Funny enough, we had the 1st edition of it, which had some of the most detailed ballistics rules and realistic ballistic rules, but then they didn't have rules for actually doing things, right? Having skills or anything like that. So that was kind of wild. But yeah, if I remember correctly, I think the reason why people have to go to Sanctuary when they hit a certain age is because that they don't have enough resources. And aren't there 4 books? Aren't there 4 Logan's Run books? Could have swore there's either 3 or 4. Yep. It's been a long time since I saw that movie. I always liked Michael York. Probably because I remember as a kid seeing the 3 Musketeers and the 4 Musketeers. And Raquel Welch, Faye Dunaway. You're like, yeah. I'm a kid, but I understand beauty. So next up, we've got Nuclear Holocaust. So, to be honest, this would have to be something that falls into kind of a Twilight 2000 category. Very limited exchange of nukes. Because the reality is, if it was a full-fledged nuclear war, that's it. End of story. You're not playing any post-apocalyptic unless you're a cockroach. Maybe your characters are cockroaches. That's a possibility. So yes, I would say something like that. Now, once again, with Nuclear Holocaust, you're looking at having the opportunity to introduce an apocalyptic setting, although it'd be like role-playing the day after. I don't know how many of you out there saw that film. That was certainly not a feel-good experience as a kid. Actually, it was in high school when that came out. Or you go further down the line into post-apocalyptic settings, where if you want, you can start throwing in mutations. You could have it where, society collapses. Most people, died of radiation poisoning, stuff like that. So now you start moving into Gamma World, Mutant Year Zero, Mutant Future. There are quite a few various different. Oh, Mutant Crawl Classics, of course. We're always talking about Goodman Games stuff here. Oh, wait, hang on. Zardots. As soon as I saw the comment that said something along the lines of, where was that? The costume on Sean Connery, I was like, oh, I know what they're talking about. I know what they're talking about. There you go. The Day After and Threads. I never saw Threads. I have heard about it. And it's like right up there in the gruesomeness scale as The Day After. There you go. Tony Hirokiti says, Threads, the role-playing game. But yes, Zardots. Vaughn Moore is hanging with us. They've been with us for a bit. Just didn't have an opportunity to say hello. So yes, of course, we've got the fallout from, a nuclear war, nuclear exchange, what have you, could lead to mutations and stuff like that. So there's another situation. We also have an asteroid hitting the Earth. So there you go. There's a doomsday situation where I would think something along the lines of a frost grave sort of setting, if you're familiar with that video game, because you figure the asteroid hitting the Earth would wipe out a lot of life. And of course, we would go into what would be, in essence, kind of like a nuclear winter because of all the dust and debris that would be in the atmosphere for years. Stephen from Roll for Combat is hanging with us. Good to see you. Good to see you. Fun Moore says, if you suspend disbelief of the actual ramifications of a nuclear holocaust, a Fallout Mutant Future setting can work. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can't focus on the reality of things if that is going to be your doomsday scenario, because unless, you're just trying to run like a short campaign where everybody's going to end up buying the farm at the end, you could do that. Another situation we've got would be the rapture, or just humanity disappears. Maybe there's a mass migration elsewhere. Then you can start looking at uplifted animals, things along those lines. Situations like that, I always find interesting. There was a book, and I think they followed it up with a series on, amazingly enough, History Channel, which I often refer to as the channel, because you don't find much history on it anymore, and you haven't for years. But it was The World Without Us. And I remember listening to the audiobook of it, and I found it fascinating about what would happen if we were just gone. We were just, for whatever reason, we were just gone, and how what humanity is built, how things would degrade and decay and fall apart over, certain number of years, into the hundreds of years, and how there are some things that we have created that would last essentially forever. Kind of cool. The Moss Druid says, The Quiet Earth is a great movie where a man wakes up to find humanity has vanished. Christopher Lundgren says, yeah, that's a good show. Some H.G. Wells Time Machine with the Morlocks and time travelers restoring humanity. Some talk about Thundar the Barbarian, Dark Sun. So, of course, then we get into something that's on a lot of people's minds right now. Artificial intelligence. You know, the machines rise up and become our overlords. And we've got a few role-playing games that are in that sort of setting. We're talking about Dreams and Machines. So, of course, obviously, we've got the Terminator. So we've got that. If you want to end up trying to screw around with all those time situations and things like that, I don't know. But you figure you are looking at a situation there where you could play the apocalypse as well as the post-apocalypse or post-apocalypse, where, you know, the final remnants of humanity are fighting against machines. In fact, I know I don't like talking about this company, but I remember when I was in high school picking up the Mechanoids, which I want to say I think was the first release by Palladium. And that was kind of the situation. It was like the machines, it was humans. If I remember right, it didn't take place on Earth, but it was sort of along the lines of Fred Saberhagen's Berserker series, where these machines, almost like the Borg, travel to different planets. So, I remember that was kind of cool. As far as the rules and stuff like that, the system itself, wonky, but the setting, pretty cool. Lord Cost 2000 is mentioning transhumanism. Yes. So, of course, like I said, we've got AI, we've got The Rise of the Machines, which I think is the title of one of those End of the World books that FFG had released. I think it's called Rise of the Machines. So we've got that. So we also have zombies or zombie-like creatures. So, of course, we have numerous role-playing games that are about zombies or zombie-like creatures that essentially end your individuality if they get their hands on you. So be it if they're like The Walking Dead or it's The Last of Us, whatever. So we have got that. Personally, I think the zombie apocalypse is best played early on. I was already talking about how I personally find the situation of from like patient zero on to be fascinating. I think that would make for just an excellent zombie show. It would be costly, that's for certain, but I think that would be an excellent zombie TV series or series of movies or what have you. Because even like World War Z, which the book is excellent, the audio book is really good with all the various different celebrities reading certain parts of it. I liked the movie. Some people hated the movie. I liked it. I thought it was fine. But the thing is, I personally think that a zombie apocalypse game has to have the fall take place quickly. Anything that can be spread from human being to human being is going to move pretty quick. It really will. Sean O'Donnell's with us. I think I may have said hello to Sean. Again, maybe I did not. W4 says Amazon has an AI robot that follows you around. Cracks the Bolt says, love zombie end of the world movies and games as long as it's like the start of the end. If it lasts long, it kind of misses the point. Yeah. That's why I'm saying a zombie apocalypse game, there is no post-apocalypse. Because the reality is, depending on the transmission of whatever it makes is making the zombies, there really is no hope. So at some point, humanity would die out. W. Forge asks, fast or slow zombies? That's a tough one because I like 28 days later, 28 weeks later. Now, I don't know if they started filming or not, but they are going to do 28 years later. So I do like those with the fast-moving zombies. I thought the remake of Dawn of the Dead was excellent. I thought that was really well done. Another movie that was with pretty speedy zombies. But I also have to say that the just slow-moving, shuffling zombies are just classic. And just as scary because it's like an immovable force heading for you, right? I mean, yeah, okay, one or two you can avoid pretty easily. 1,000, not so much, you know? So there we have that. So the final scenario that I'm going to roll out there for you would be, and we've mentioned this already, alien invasion. So our alien overlords, I know it had been mentioned on a previous show. There is a third-party product. I don't know if it's out yet. It might be coming out, or it's War of the Worlds for Mutant Crawl Classics, and it looks as if it is the H.G. Wells War of the Worlds, where I've got to say, as weird as this may sound, the original book, War of the Worlds, the battle between the Walker and I want to say it is a British cruiser, is pretty damn cool. In the book, it's pretty exciting. It's kind of like, oh, hey, because reality is, Jules Verne stories, H.G. Wells stories don't tend to have a lot of pulse-pounding excitement going on. But actually, I liked it a lot. And there was an audiobook version that I had a copy of. And of course, I'm sure there's tons of different audiobook versions. But they did a nice job of kind of, building suspense with that portion of the battle against the Martians. So, of course, Alien Invasion gives us a lot of great opportunities. We can do the apocalypse itself taking place. We can go way down the line as far as the aftermath of, having alien overlords and things like that. There are a lot of great book series out there that you could take advantage of. And no, Battlefield Earth is not one of them. Please don't read that book, please. I beg you, save yourself. Save yourself while you can. Sean O'Donnell says the original radio play was mistaken for a news report by some in the London area. The Orson Welles version that he did on Halloween Eve in the United States in 1939, I think it was 38, 39, did lead to some panic. Not as much panic as had been reported. And I can actually wrap up the show talking a little bit about that in just a moment. But it is excellent if you ever have an opportunity to give it a listen. If you haven't listened to the War of the Worlds on the Mercury Theater on the air, it is on the air, isn't it? Or is it Mercury Theater in the air? Of the air? I forget. Mercury Theater. Which became the Campbell's Playhouse, actually, once they got a sponsor. Give it a listen. And that first 25 minutes or so, of course, nowadays you wouldn't fall for something like this. But if you think about it, all people had was, they're listening to the radio. They didn't have the internet. They couldn't go look, hey, wait a second. Grover's Mill, hold on. Let me see what we got here. And the part where the Martians attack New York, I think is what probably freaked people out the most who were listening to it live. So, but yeah, Alien Invasion, man, you've got some great opportunities there. And there are quite a few role-playing games that are out there for that. You know what? I got to say that I would think maybe the post-apocalyptic period might be more entertaining to play as a role-playing game, because if you're playing the apocalypse, then the humans really don't have much of a chance, right? So it would be sort of like playing the Steven Spielberg version of War of the Worlds as opposed to a role-playing game. Unless, once again, you're looking at running a short campaign where the player characters are not going to survive. I guess you could do that. Kevin R. Smith says, one of the drugstores in their neighborhood had cassettes of old radio shows for sale. One of them was Orson Welles' War of the Worlds, so they got to listen as a teenager. I also had cassettes that one of our grocery chains sold, and it was Jewel. And I remember getting Abbott and Costello. Well, it was my brother and I both. And I was in grammar school. I know that for a fact. We had Abbott and Costello. We had The Shadow was one of them. We didn't have War of the Worlds, though. In fact, funny enough, I didn't hear the War of the Worlds broadcast until I was probably in my 20s. And somebody had an album that they had loaned me. And funny enough, we were already to the point of CDs at that point. But I did have a turntable, and I remember checking it out. I was like, wow, this is awesome. This is really cool. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up by sharing why there was far more reported fallout about the War of the Worlds broadcast. What's the name? Guy's name on first base. Who's on first? Yes, that was actually the Abbott and Costello cassette that we got. So if I remember right, I think there was one episode on each side that we got. Pete Strackledge says, Lamentation of the Flame Princess, Earth Incubation Crisis is dope. I don't know, just the title. I could tell it's Lamentations of the Flame Princess. Kevin R. Smith says, Burns and Allen, yes, that was another. Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy, which interestingly enough, one of the reasons why so many people were fooled by the War of the Worlds broadcast was because it was airing opposite Charlie McCarthy. I want to say it was what did they call it? The Sanborn Hour? Because I think it was Sanborn Coffee. So what people would tend to do is they would listen to the show up to the point where they would have their first musical guest. And then people would start, searching around the dial. And Orson Welles and some of the other people who are working on War of the Worlds knew this. So they timed the arrival of the Martians emerging from their cylinder at that point. So that people tuning in would be like, wait, what? So that was one thing that they did. But the thing was, a lot of newspapers reported panic that took place that never took place because newspapers were in direct competition, at least they felt, with radio. So there were, at that point in time, there were newspapers that would not publish radio schedules because just like you would have your TV listings in the newspaper, they would have radio listings in the newspaper. Well, at that point in time, there were a lot of newspapers that did not actually publish radio schedules because they felt that radio was taking away readers from the newspapers. So they played it off as this massive fiasco and how, people were committing suicide and jumping off buildings and all of these other things. And that didn't really happen. Now, that's not to say that there weren't people who freaked out and were calling CBS to find out what the hell's going on, or who were trying to get a hold of, family in New York. Sure, that took place. But the mass panic with thousands in the streets and shit like that, no. Never really happened. But newspapers built that up, to try to knock radio down, which that was never going to happen. I always thought that was kind of interesting. And of course, that propelled Orson Welles into the zeitgeist. Prior to that, he had actually directed some productions off Broadway, and they were actually really well received. But it was the War of the Worlds that actually got him the contract with RKO Pictures, which led to Citizen Kane. I like Orson Welles. Anyway, so some discussion about vitamins and hormones. Matthew Constantine popped on in, says Orson Welles, that scamp. All right, so that is it for tonight's show. As far as tomorrow's topic, I don't know. I have no idea. Tune in, you'll find out. Although, I got to be honest, I won't be shocked if a lot of you are not in chat tomorrow night. You decide that you're going to watch the presidential debate. I'll just watch the lowlights afterwards and just sigh. Anyway, W. Forge says, Wells did love those peas later in life. There is another one where he's doing, I think it's the Paul Masson wine commercials where he's in rare form. Actually, Orson Welles didn't have it easy. If you look into the background about Citizen Kane, when he made that movie, he made a lot of enemies, and he made some very powerful enemies too. So, alrighty, So if you're watching live, thank you very much. Of course, if you watched live and took part in chat, big tip of the cap for you for helping keep me company here. It is much appreciated. But of course, I know a lot of you out there, you don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Thank you very much for taking time out to watch any of the videos here on the channel. And of course, if you like this video, give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. It'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central right here on YouTube. It'll also let you know when I share other videos, such as my upcoming first look at the Little Game Masters Collector's Box from Randall Hampton. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit gaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Everybody enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is in your neck of the woods. I will be back tomorrow. And as always, I certainly hope each and every one of you gets to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.